Hey everybody, it's Bust with week 7 of the Champion Draft Series. This week we'll be doing battle against GrandpaRoji, the coach, player, owner, manager, card battler of the Extrusive Elementals. And so, to get you a touch of a recap up to this point, we're hanging out right at the bottom of the standings. A very solid 1-5 record, 1-6 record, whatever we're at for at this point of the thing. We've won one match and then we lost all of them after that. And so I think that there is kind of an outside chance that you could still make the top cut if we win the rest of the way. I think a 4-5 record can do it, but if we're in week 7, I can't, I'm losing track of how far along we are. I think we're mathematically eliminated at this point, but we're still going to come out here and try and crush some dreams, see if we can't knock someone else out of the event. You know, that's what you got to do. You just start at the bottom. The only place you can go is up. And so, again, this week we're up against GrandpaRoji. He is also down at the bottom of the list. I didn't check the standings from last week. I know that we were treading water right above him. He was hanging out with just one win as well, but our tiebreakers were much better, and I'm not certain if that's still the case. But, you know, as far as that goes, we've had some real ups and downs this season. We've had a lot of really close matches, and, you know, if GrandpaRoji, Worlds competitor 2 times in a row, he'll be playing in Worlds here in the upcoming days, can only muster one win as well, then, you know, it doesn't make you feel nearly as bad. But we'll pull up his team. We'll talk about him a little bit more. And so GrandpaRoji had pick 10. If you remember back to the snake draft style of thing, that meant that he didn't get to pick until number 10. He got number 10 and 11 back to back, and then he doesn't get to pick again until it rolls into like pick 31 or pick 30 or so, right? And so what you tend to see at these players on the wheel is they tend to draft champions together that have a lot of high synergies, right? The way that we've been kind of describing this concept is if you want to think of a champion combo like Aatrox Vayne, maybe you pick Aatrox in the middle of the draft, right? If you're thinking of, say, our position right in the middle, if you take Aatrox wanting to get Vayne on the way back, you have to survive 10 picks. And then if the Vayne doesn't make it back, then there's not a ton of champion combinations left that Aatrox is really happy with. But if you're looking at GrandpaRoji's draft, where he's like right on the edge to where he gets back-to-back picks, he gets to pick up champions that he knows are going to work fantastically together. And so he's very well known for playing Action Varus. That was his first 2 picks of the draft. He continued this kind of theme. I was surprised he didn't take Talia Malphite right next to each other. I think he kind of realized that he could probably just get Malphite with the last pick of the draft, but he's also extremely well known for playing Talia Malphite. And so that's what we see as a lot of his draft, is he started off with that Action Varus. He did pick up that Talia Malphite combo, but the kind of downside to drafting like this is it's kind of very visible and apparent to the decks that you're going to be bringing. And so that's what we've kind of seen out of GrandpaRoji at this point. Like week 1, he just played a bunch of decks you would expect. I think that he played maybe like Action Varus, and then he played Talia Malphite, and then he played, I believe, Zigzarath, or maybe he played Fiora Pantheon. Nonetheless, it was like 3 very like specific archetypes that you would expect. Then he kind of got the memo that people are playing Cosmic Call, and so within like week 2, he decided to start playing Fiora Pantheon, where Fiora was the only Demacian cards, and he was just playing the Cosmic Call deck, and then he was also playing like Malphite Bard, and the only things within that theme was just, hey, this is a Cosmic Call deck. And so with the nerfs to Cosmic Call, he's kind of morphed back to just playing the decks that you would expect, and so we're going to try and take advantage of that. And so the decks that I would expect GrandpaRoji to bring has 2 kind of aspects to it. Number 1, we have kind of mentioned that, you know, these are kind of straightforward decks. You look at the champions and you say, oh, there's Action Varus. What else is he going to play with Varus, right? There's not a ton. There's not really any options in here, right? You're not playing Varus Talia. You're not playing Varus Garen. It's like Action Varus is really the only choice. I guess you could play Varus Pantheon. That's been kind of a thing on occasions, but it's not what strikes me as a real deck. And so, you know, I think the choices that he has are going to be very straightforward. The other thing is Worlds is coming up. GrandpaRoji is a Worlds competitor, and no disrespect to the Champion Draft Series, but I have to assume that Worlds is more on GrandpaRoji's radar than the champion draft series is. And so I have a feeling that he's just going to show up with tried and true decks and probably not really play test much this week. Assume that he's just going against the guy that's at the bottom of the standings. He can just outplay him, just bring decks that don't suck, and he should just kind of be off to the races. And so what I think that we're going to be seeing out of GrandpaRoji is a very specific set of decks. I think that there are 4 decks that he might end up bringing this week. He's going to have access to Action Varus. He's going to have access to Talia Malphite. He's going to have access to Pantheon Fiora, and then he's going to have access to Zig Zerath. The last deck that he's been bringing outside of that is Bard Garen. I don't think that he looks at our lineup and our stuff and looks at his skill set and says, oh boy, the thing I want to do against the guy at the bottom of the standings is play elites. And so I don't think that that's really on the radar. I think, again, we're going to be seeing Action Varus, we're going to see Pantheon Fiora, we're going to see Zig Zerath, and then we're going to see Talia Malphite. Now, if you're not familiar with Talia Malphite, that is the deck throughout the course of history with every single deck that I have played over the course of my competitive battling in Legends of Runeterra. Talia Malphite has a positive matchup against. There is a 0% chance we're playing against Talia Malphite today. That is 100% going to be the easiest ban of the entirety of the event. I just know it's one of these decks. You see, it's like, ooh, I can make a good Talia Malphite matchup, and it just never happens. You just get absolutely trounced by it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so I fully expect GrandpaRoji to bring Talia Malphite, and we're going to ban it. And so that does leave those kind of 3 decks behind, right? You know, we're just gonna ban Talia Malphite. He's not gonna bring Bard Garen. And so we're looking at Action Varus, we're looking at Fiora Pantheon, and then we're looking at Zig Zerath. And what really kind of like strikes me as the theme against all of these champions is you do have a lot of OTK aspects, right? Varus is an OTK champion, Pantheon's an OTK champion, Fiora is an OTK champion, and then you just have a lot of 4 health units, right? You got your Varus, your Pantheon gets up to around 4, Fiora has 4, Ziggs has 4, Zerath has 4. And so what we're really going to look to do is kind of tweak our decks a little bit so that we can combat an OTK just a touch, right? I'm not going to assemble some kind of lineup or something that looks to just shut down the OTK over and over and over and over again. I don't think our champion selection is really set up for doing that, and stylistically with the decks I like to play, they don't run into that well. Now, it's not to say that we can't edit our deck choices to make this kind of work a bit more in our favor, but we want to keep that in mind. We're going to be facing at least 1 OTK deck, potentially 2, and I suspect it's going to be 2 because Fiora Pantheon strikes me as a set of champions that you would like to take against a bunch of mid-range decks. And so that's one thing we're keeping in mind. Otherwise, I just want to be slightly bigger than all the stuff that he's doing. It's either we're going to avoid combat completely, we're going to overwhelm through all of his stuff, whatever. We want our units to just be a little bit bigger than his. And so I don't expect much interactivity. I think this is just going to be kind of the dick measuring contest to see who can do the most powerful thing the fastest. And I want to have just a touch of interactivity in case, you know, he starts measuring up faster. And so to circle back to our champions and how we can kind of look at that, first and foremost, I want to say we're not playing Poppy. We're not playing Poppy ever again. I feel like I know out of the last 6 times we've played Poppy, we've lost 5. I'm not surprised if the answer to that is the last 8 times we played Poppy, we've lost 7. I'm just done. You know, I started kind of like brewing some ideas, and I think that, you know, Poppy is a champion that has a lot of potential to be quite strong this week. And I just reminded myself, no, we're never playing Poppy. And so you're not going to see any of the Poppy decks today. The other thing that I think that our lineup really has going for it is Jax and Trundle are both very strong. And so I do feel kind of bad that we've been playing Jax Freylord and Trundle LeBlanc like over and over and over again over the course of the past few weeks. It's just that's the way the matchups have kind of lined up. And then that's also just what I think the best thing our lineup is capable of doing. And so you are going to see Jax again. You are going to see Trundle again. But we have another little special selection that I think can potentially pop off this week against GrandpaRoji. And so for our first deck, what should just be our strongest deck, we're bringing Jax Braum. There's no craziness going on here. This is a fairly straightforward Jax Braum deck. We have made some edits to it with the matchup ahead in mind. Number one, we've been playing Ruthless Raider, but we've also been up against much more removal-heavy decks. I don't think that Ruthless Raider really belongs in the lineup this week because I want to keep in mind that we're probably going to be fighting up against action. And when we're up against action, I like having the early game 2/3s. And so with the way that we've kind of set this up this week, we still have the full 3 sets of Favored Artisan, and then we've cut back to having the Frostcoat Cub, just a unit that can come down early, interact with action if need be. It's still a viable target in the later game for a Wildclaw Ferocity. And then if we do need to top off our curve with the big Overwhelm unit, we have the option there. I'm a big fan of the Frostcoat Cub in this space. Otherwise, fairly straightforward in terms of the Forge deck. We have the full set of Weapon Masters this week. We're playing the full 9 Weapon Masters to go along with the full set of Apprentices, Artisans, and Menders. And then over in the spell space, to help us kind of combat the idea of playing against a bunch of OTK decks, we have the 2 copies of the Unforgiven Cold. That is a very important removal spell, or I should say a very important interactive spell in the face of both Pantheon and Varus, as it can crack a spell shield and then get the Frostbite in, right? If you want to say, do I want to play something like Frostbite or Harsh Winds or Three Sisters or the Unforgiven Cold, you have to kind of stop and think about the angle that you're going to be taking. And so the opposing deck is going to have one unit that we care about, that one unit action, not action, I'm sorry, it's going to be Fiora, Pantheon, Varus, and then they do have the potential for spell shields. And so the Unforgiven Cold definitely gets the nod, given that we have access to it here, but that's also why you're seeing 3 copies of Three Sisters to give us access to that flash freeze if we need it in the town of utility space. The last thing to kind of note with this Freylord deck is we're not playing Troll Chant. I don't expect us to run into very many situations to where Troll Chant gives us a 2-for-1, right? If you're thinking of kind of traditionally playing a curve deck, we attack our 2/3/3s into our opponent's 2/3/3s, then we play Troll Chant so that we win both of the combats. There's just not too many sequences against any of Roji's expected decks to where Troll Chant is very effective. And so that's the way you're seeing the spells in this space. And then last but not least, we've kicked it up to the 2 Wildclaws Ferocities because we need to end the game fast, right? This game needs to end on turn 6, turn 7, turn 8 because he is playing those big OTK decks. And so if we can slow down the OTK once and then get the time to cycle back around and get in a big Wildclaw Ferocity, it gives us the opportunity to come in and get the steal before he can OTK us. And so deck number 2, LeBlanc Trundle. Now, I kind of feel bad about bringing the Freylord decks over and over and over again, but we have played a variety of flavors of LeBlanc Trundle this season. We've played LeBlanc Trundle Warden of the Tribes. We've played LeBlanc Trundle in the kind of Ash LeBlanc style, and now we're coming out and playing the Yetis. Now, the Yetis are a very high-rolly kind of deck, but I think this is the kind of place where they have the chance to shine, right? The 2 things that we're looking to do, right? We want to have some Frostbites so that we have ways to interact with action, interact with Varus, interact with the Fiora. We do have the Three Sisters in here in the Bloody Businesses. So we do have direct ways to shut down his big OTK style of champions. But looking at the stat lines on the majority of his units, especially if he looks to bring something like Zigzarath, is they don't line up against 5/5s very well, right? I know there's not too many units within the game that line up well against 5/5s, but when it comes to the unit suites that we could be playing, right? If we're playing something like Elites where everything is a 3/3, if we're playing something like a Poppy Lulu deck to where everything is a 2-power unit that grows into a 3, all of these decks line up, very well into the space of things like Fiora. They line up very well into the space of things like Ziggs, to where that 4 health really combats everything that we're doing. But we're out here saying, oh, okay, I got you. I feel that. I see the size of your units. I'm going to go one bigger than your units and try to flip the script back on what you're doing. And so that is the big idea with the Yetis, as we have to kind of casually encounter the likes of Fiora. If we're just bigger than Fiora, that cuts a lot into the game plan of her, of being able to come in and pick on some smaller units along the way to build up to those 4 strikes. The other thing with LeBlanc Trundle is, while I expect him to be bringing the Action Varus and the Fiora Pantheon, if he does look to bring the other decks, if he does want to bring Elites, or if he does want to bring Zigzarath, then these units just absolutely outshine everything that those decks have. And the big thing with this is one of the most high-rolly kind of cards in the game is going to be Tall Tales. And if he doesn't have removal spells, which you don't typically see in the style of decks that he's bringing, the Tall Tales is just much, much, much safer on turn 3, coming out off of the Yeti Yearling. And then LeBlanc is also safer as a function as well, given that the opponent isn't playing Mystic Shots, isn't playing Aftershocks, isn't playing any of that P and Z based direct removal. And so this is one of these decks where I don't think it's typically good. You know, it's not a ladder grinder that I'm really excited about, but in the space of this particular matchup, I think that the Yetis have the potential for a lot of strength. And then last but not least, we're revitalizing a deck we haven't played since the first couple weeks of the season, bringing in Jinx Lulu. And now, Jinx Lulu does not fit some of those themes that we've been talking about, right? It doesn't have any way to interact with an OTK. It doesn't have any way to get into combat with a Fiora and survive. But I think this is still going to be quite a powerful option this week because the opposing decks do not interact very well with Elusives, right? He has access to Quicksand out of the action deck, and that's really it. And so if he's not going to come out and interact with us and play challengers and Mystic Shots and stuff, this gives us just like a very, very, very ultra fast way to just shut down and kill them off before he's able to get going. And so as you do play against these OTK decks, you have the kind of two decisions in how you want to approach and attack them. Do you want to come down and try and just get that Varus off of the board, right? So you're going to set up that critical turn to where opponent tries to kill you with Varus, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to play a Vengeance and a Vile Feast and a Vile Feast, crack all your spell shields, and just kill your unit along the way, right? Or you can just kill them before the OTK can pop off. And as far as our lineup goes, this Jinx-based Elusives deck is the one that just has the most potential to come out and pop off and kill him before that he can actually get the OTKs up and running. And so if you weren't familiar with this style of deck, it's looking to get a Flame Chompers on board on either turn 2 or turn 3, and then boost it with a Lulu, right? And so the idea is we have the Boom Baboons and the Flame Chompers. If we play either one on the second turn of the game, or I should say if we have access to either of them on the second turn of the game, then we can roll into turn 3, discard the Flame Chompers to get it directly on board, have it grow up to a 4/4 with Lulu. Ideally, it just wins the combat, and then Lulu gets to deal damage. And then every turn after that, Lulu can just boost an Elusive, right? And so it's just a very, very, very high-powered opening that we can just throw at the opponent. And then if he's not going to come at us and kill us quickly, it still gives us the opportunity to kill him with burn spells, right? And so if he is setting up his big turn 7, turn 8 OTK, we're facing down 17 damage from a Varus. If he's at 6, then we still just have the opportunities to burn him out on the turn that he's developing his big OTK. And so I think this one has some potential this week. I'm definitely leaving Poppy at home, and I think kind of swinging for the fences is a viable strategy here against Roji's lineup. And so that's it. That's what we're bringing. But before the battles begin, we do need a little bit of help, right? We are not nearly as skilled as a Worlds competitor, but the thing we can do is come in and pay to win. And I was surprised. I thought that, looking at a deck like Trundle, LeBlanc, and the Freylord Noxus, that we would just have everything premiumed up, but we're kind of lacking this week. Look at this. Blood for Blood is not turned premium. I think Igvar isn't. Look at that. And then moving down, the Abominable Guardian is not either. And so we have to rectify that situation just a little bit, right? And we're going to go for the Blood for Blood. I'm feeling pretty good about it. It gives us a way to take a premium Yeti and generate another premium Yeti. That's just about as good as life gets. And so I'm feeling pretty good about our decision making there. And so you've heard our thoughts on the format. You've heard about our lineup. The decks will be released momentarily. I know it's a fast gap for you, but it's a big jump for me. And we'll pull up GrandpaRoji's lineup, talk about it a little bit before the games begin. Okay, so we got Roji's decks pulled up. It's interesting. Of the 5 that we expected, Talia Malphite is here, but the least expected of the other two showed up in the Zigzarath along with the Bard Garen. And so again, it's a very easy ban for us on Talia Malphite. I was never intending on playing this, and so Not too much thought process in that. But as far as these other decks go, I'm a little bit worried about some of this, right? In the sense that we have to play our Lulu deck against this Bard Garen that does have the full 3 copies of Blocking Badger Bear and the 3 copies of Sharp Sight. And so I feel, kind of okay playing against Bard Garen with all of our Freylord decks, right? I think Jax Orange should be completely fine against this. I think Trundle LeBlanc should be fine against this. Like the things that we're really looking for in those decks, just like the low interactivity, who can do the most powerful thing the fastest kind of games. I think we're pretty well set in as far as Freylord goes, but we're going to run into some issues trying to get the Elusives into combat against this. But nonetheless, I think that we're still fairly strong here in the sense that as long as we avoid those just like really high impact can't beat elites draws to where you curve like Cythria into Battlesmith into a Cythria into a 2-drop into like a free Vanguard Squire or something, I think we're okay. I think he's definitely going to struggle with the size of our units, and so that's kind of nice. Otherwise, as far as Zig Zarath goes, like in my brain, it seems kind of okay. All of our units are bigger than his champions, and so that's a fairly good thing. The removal within this isn't that great. It still fits in that same kind of area of, a Rite of the Arcane can't kill a Yeti. But you do have to worry about a lot of large units coming out of like the Endless Devout and the Rock Bear Shepherd. And so we'll see. I think it's okay. If we get to beat up on anything, I think it will be against Bard Garen. But yeah, seeing this turn up with the the 2 copy or the full 3 copies of Badger Bear, the full 3 copies of Sharp Sight does give me a little bit of worry, a little bit of pause about what we're about to get ourselves into, but I think it'll be okay. We'll see what we can do here. Let's jump on into battle. All right, off we go. So where we at? We got the Poro, we got the Star Guardians, we got the Yetis. Let's dive on in, see how it goes. So I expect the ban to come out on Jax here. We're of course got to ban that Talia Malphite, and I'm excited. Let's kick things off with Yetis if we get the chance. He hasn't made the selections yet. I'm feeling pretty good about Jax just getting banned. But man, look at that Braum showing off that chiseled chest out in the sun, out in the snow. But all right, where are we at? Talia Malphite's getting out of here. And I expect our Jax Braum deck is probably going to be the ban. I didn't see anything in there to, really indicate that he was interested in trying to hard target Jax. I just kind of feel like you see Jax and say, ugh, that's probably the best of them. And takes out the Elusives. Good stuff. Good stuff. That was the one that I was most worried about. Let's see if we can't pick on the elites here just a little bit. Man, I meant to take a picture of it the other day. I knew it was so appropriate. You can see GrandpaRoji's LP up here at 607. I was sitting at 608, 1 rank right above him. And I was like, how appropriate is that for the upcoming CDS match to have that rank right next to each other as we're coming up? And so I didn't save it. I don't like to have fun, but it was an option out there. But with this, I'm going to go ahead and drop the Omen Hawk. He attacks here never, and I want to get the stat bonuses onto the units within our deck. And so we'll just go ahead and drop the bird so that we're more likely to pick up those units with the stats, and hopefully they'll come through at an effective time. Now, how do we feel about this Weaponsmith's Apprentice? I kind of like just getting the bigger unit on board now with the Favored Artisan, right? We'll get the mana back next turn to drop a Piltover Castaway, and then we can still, on turn 4, go for the Apprentice into the second Castaway. I think I'm pretty on board with this. Let's just get the biggest stats we can as soon as we can. All right, Frostcoat Cub comes in as the secondary +1/+1 unit. Let's get our Castaway in here. I'm leaning towards the Fix'em 5000. Our units aren't going to be big enough to survive these combats even with the combat reel. And so this puts us in a spot to where, maybe next turn we just re-equip that weapon somewhere. Gives us a little bit more options in terms of just generating a strong unit somewhere else. Like if we hit a Scout Rake or something here, we could take that as a chance, right? So we could take the Scout Rake and then just boost the stats on it. I think I'm on board with it. The thing with the Rake is we're going to be playing the Wild Claw Ferocity 2 turns from now, and that is just the kind of premier target for what it can hit. And so get the Castaway in. We'll go ahead and take him up to 5 attack. Get that sweet old attack in. Sure. All right, now how do we feel about the attacks here? The 3-4 feels good. The quick attack thing into Bard isn't spectacular, but it does make his future Bard attacks bad. He's like very limited in his deck and what he has to actually boost the size of his units on board. It's just like Champion Strength and Vanguard Bannerman. And he has had a slow draw this game, right? He had the 1-1, no 2s, and then he's kind of started off with the 3s and the 4s. And so Bannerman isn't completely off the table with a slow start like this. But, I mean, we need some way to spend our mana next turn anyways. I think this is good. Like, if we can get that Bard down to 1 health and then he has to trade with a Weaponsmith's Apprentice or something, that sounds like kind of a win. And Jax turns up. Nice timing, my dude. Let's get right into combat next turn. That's how you do it, huh? That's how you do it. So Garen does come in for the stat boost. A bit of a bummer there, but we can still deliver this upcycled Rake to the board and get some pretty good blocks. I think we probably just drop it on onto the favored Artisan, and then she's free to block Garen. And then after that, we'll just get the kind of heal next turn with the Wild Claw. Clumsy work. So this isn't... I got a cat sitting on my feet. Happens every time. This isn't quite where I want to stop, right? We're going to play Jax, and we're going to play the Fix Him 5000. And if we're going to Fix Him 5000, I want his units to just have 2 health out here. And so, or 3 health, so that we win on that quick attack. So we'll drop in 1 block. Now we get Jax. Do we want to go ahead and drop the Fix Him 5000? Probably hold on to it. If we draw a Sky Splitter next turn, it could be relevant. The place to where it matters is if he's going to Champion Strength, but he's not going to have Champion Strength mana next turn, so I think we're safe in that sense. Now we get that opportunity for the quick attack in Braum. We can play the big Frostcoat Cub. Lots of big choices this turn. All right, big Overwhelmer rolling through. Gotta like seeing that. I don't know what the Bard call's supposed to... Holy shit, he hit 4 chimes? I guess that's what it's supposed to do. Oh, snap. Get them stats out here. Is it big enough to take down a Wild Claw? All right. Just won that time. I think we're... Oh, shit. How bad is that? He ramps up to the 6/6 on his Bard. Damn. All right, we can't do anything about that. Dang, son. That's scary. That's scary stuff right there. The Bard chimes rolling through. So he's only just going to have like 1 big unit in hand, though, right? There's not a ton of stuff we really have to worry about. I think. I hope. Perhaps. The biggest battlesmith in the world. All right. So how are we going to handle this, though? The downside for this turn is it takes us a lot of actions to get a Scout Rake onto the board. I mean, it's fairly tempting to just like deploy the Braum and then try to Scout Rake into the Badger Bear, right? Not necessarily go for the OTK right away. I think I'm okay with this. Like, we can even just, skip out on... we can skip out on that attack if we want. Holy fuck, these units are so big. Oh my god. all the stats in the world. Those bard chimes and stuff are really coming through. So how are we going to handle this next turn? The thing that I do like is we have the three sisters in hand, so we do have the potential to say like get this smaller unit on board, get the overwhelm unit on board, and then just entomb the unit away. Like that's one thing that we could look to do. Otherwise, I mean, we have to block all three units. We just take too much damage here otherwise. So it's gonna look something like this. Don't have to worry about any combat tricks here. So we're not dead though. We get the unit back out.
If you're gonna sit down, make sure you stretch.
Do we ever want to say block like this? So we leave the Badger Bear, but then we have two units that Braum has good hooks into. I think I like that. It's a little bit worse if he has a champion strength though. He does have the 9 mana for next turn. Okay. I think that we're taking our Poro and then just and just playing to the three sisters. So I think this is okay. If he tries to make some kind of action onto our Braum, then we should know that we're safe at that point, and we can just try and pop off with the mighty Poro into the Entomb. Right, I'd feel much safer if he's like, LOL, here's a single combat onto the Braum, right? As long as we know the coast is clear from that one card, then we're fairly okay. I don't think there's any way around it. Well, the way around it would be a second champion strength, right? But we're just all in at this point. We could have played the Unforgiven Cold to try and get around it, but I think with his like 3 spells of interaction and him playing one of them, that's just kind of where we're at. Make sure we pick the right card, though. a definite necessity there. Got to pick the right card, and it was good. GG. Whew, okay. Victory achieved against the elites. That was much more challenging than I thought it was ever supposed to be. Those bard calls just really popped off, hitting for the 4 and spreading out all of the stats and killing our Wild Claw. That nonsense wasn't supposed to happen. All right, though, he switches to Zigzarath. We do have an interesting start here with the Tall Tales. It is really powerful to drop on turn 3, but we don't currently have any Yetis, and so I think that we're stuck getting rid of it. LeBlanc should be fairly safe in this match. Like, out the gates, all he has that can kill her is a Drop the Bomb. And so I feel, decent about her in this space. Touch of an awkward draw, though. He's going to show us how to aggro. He's going to bring out the rock hoppers and stuff. Oh, man, look at that. Our yearling turned up. I think that we're okay to still just go ahead and drop it. Our hand is fairly awkward. And, like, the Yeti draw is fine, right? You can find yourselves in a lot of games with this to where you're fairly unhappy about Yetis being stuck on the top of your deck. But I don't think that this is one of those cases. I think this is okay. And, like, given that our hand is so, like, awkwardly expensive, hitting that one mana 5/5 feels like kind of a good deal. Okay. We didn't have the drop the bomb run through, but that was a fairly nice turn of tempo. He at least didn't get to generate any of the big landmarks off of his spell. Alright, and so we hit Whispered Words here. That means the top unit of our deck should be the Yeti. And so it's a touch awkward as far as this hand goes. We know that, you know, it's just Yeti and or like Yeti or Trundle. We don't have a ton. Is it not? Oh, I was thinking of the Avarosian Trapper. Okay, I guess that was a little bit different then. I was thinking that we played the Trapper that puts the 2 units on top of your deck. And it's just not quite the case here. So how do we feel about combats? He does have the mana left over for Quicksand. Like, I think I'm kind of okay with letting him pick up the Devouts here. Do we get completely trucked if he has a Quicksand here? Right? We need to start leveling up and getting to the Tactician and getting to Reputation, but I think this is okay. He only plays 1 copy of Quicksand. And now we should be a little bit safer in these upcoming turns, being able to cast the 3 Sisters. I'll take the bait on whatever this is. Just trying to get us low or something. I don't think we can sit on trying to protect Trundle. He's just too far away. And he takes down LeBlanc. I think I can live with that. The thing I'm trying to think on in this space is, do we want to go ahead and blood for blood onto the Ancient Yeti? So that it's more castable next turn. We give up on some of our ability to play combat tricks, but we do get that second Yeti in hand. Like, that does still leave us with kind of a secondary blood for this Incisive Tactician. Just keep the mana. Yeah, I say. Yeah. Sad groan. Oh, just a 3rd LeBlanc, huh? She is ready to party today. Says I show up in maximum numbers. Well, this definitely feels like the turn we're going to be out here playing the 3 Sisters. If we get the upgrade on Trundle, it activates our Tactician, or we're going to be out here protecting our LeBlanc. Maybe not getting the flip for the Reputation, but I think this is okay. All right, the squad survives. See if we can't get the takedown next turn. We got that Incisive Tactician in hand. We missed Reputation though, didn't we? We literally just sat and talked about that. It's going to take him 2 turns to get the fun happening, but I think we're in okay space. How bad is this? Probably pretty bad. Probably pretty bad. And Ziggs. The whole team is here. It feels like that was a pretty bad turn for us. It feels like the Yetis are not happy with how this turn has gone down. We don't get killed this turn, but we really suffer for any unit that we add to the board. Oh shit. He managed to hit Overwhelm Spell Shield on his arsenal. That's pretty good. So, I mean, what happens is we play the Pillar, right? He deals 3 to the weakest enemy, so we can play the Pillar and it's just going to kill LeBlanc, but that is one of the few ways that we can kind of get out of this turn, right? If we play a Pillar, we can use it to only take 3 from the arsenal. So what are we looking at here? I think we're just dead. I think we're stuck playing like Whispered Words. But let's wait until the combat hits. But just leaving LeBlanc on board does not feel like enough.
I'm not getting any younger.
This turn is bad. Alright, well I'm going to play the pillar. We do have this just like little bit of opportunity to... The fuck, why didn't these... When an enemy is summoned, destroy me to... Why didn't it land on Ice Pillar? Those spells don't do it. Those spells don't do it. GG. Alright, on to game 3. Gotta see what we can do against the elites. That's weird though with Ice Pillar, right? Does Ice Pillar count as a champion? Huh. Interesting. Nonetheless, that was tough. There has to have been a better way to have handled that previous turn. Maybe we just went too hard. Maybe we shouldn't have played nearly as, like, made that big of an attack and, like, risked all of our units. Maybe we should have waited until we could get our Trundle on board and then, or get our Trundle flipped and then just try and go for, like, the big OTK attack when we have access to the rally and stuff. I think we probably got a little too aggressive that game. But as far as this goes, I'm okay to hang on to one Yeti. It does let us burst out our units a little bit faster. But hanging on to 2 is too much against elites, and so we have to send the other one back. Fairly scary hand here. Not being able to get on board until turn 4, picking up the Trundle and the Abomination. Like on turn 5, we're going to start to pop, but this is a pretty scary turn 4. Or turn 3.
Remember the fallen.
So I think with this turn, like, I know that it's not very exciting, but I think we just want to play the Yeti Yearling and take the 2 blocks. I don't think that we can play a 3 Sisters on the round. Like, it's it's fairly tempting to just look at this as a space to where we actually just pull all of these back so that we get our Guardian down next turn. I don't think so. We have to keep the 1 back though, so we have the 2. Right? Round start, if you have 2 Yetis, summon me. And so next turn we'll get to play the Ancient and then play the Abominable. So as long as he doesn't have one of his single combats here, we should be safe. So he's only got 1 mana left at this point. I mean, it should be safe to attack. Like, he's not going to hit us with Overwhelm or anything here. Now the Abominable comes on board. And we have the opportunities to react here. We can add LeBlanc to do stuff, or I think that's the way to go. Like, we can get Trundle on board and block 4 units. I think that's okay. We're gonna take 7 in total. Right, we block his 2 bigs. We put the Trundle in front of the 4/4. He's only going to have a 3 and a 4 rolling through for 7 damage. He's got a champion strength, doesn't he? he's sitting there calculating it out. Can I pull off the champion strength? But the other interesting thing that we can possibly do next turn is just play Trundle Quake, right? If we set this up to where we put our Ancient Yeti and Abominable Guardian in front of his 5s, we put a Yeti Yearling in front of a 4, we put the Trundle in front of the other 4, then we can Trundle Quake and clear out his remaining 3s. I think that's probably the way to go about it. Alright, so we take 7, fall to 3. Next turn we Trundle Quake. Didn't just get aced by a judgment. the things to worry about in life, getting aced by judgment. No, I think this is good. I think this is good. I think he was trying to build to that champion strength. Has to be a card in hand, and so I mean we do struggle if he has like double unit here in some way, but we can deal with these. We got the three sisters at home.
Still so much to learn.
LeBlanc is such a bad blocker here. It is what it is. And Bannerman. God damn it. That's like the one card that we die to. Well, I guess we would die to a sharp side as well. Right? Alright, GG. Ah, so close. Such an awkward draw. Like, that felt so good with the Trundle Quake. Like, it just... It's one of those spots to where you just have to do it, right? You can maybe like send in an attack and hope that the attack goes through and like your Trundle just doesn't get blocked, and then he plays a unit and then you play the Trundle Quake. But like he's so far away from like death, and it just felt like he was so clearly building up to the champion's strength that you just kind of like have to do it. And I thought that we were going to have enough time on the next turn, right, as to where if he has the champion's strength in hand, then we have the unit on board, we get to play another unit, and then we have the flash freeze to stop the last one. And so it's like we line up exactly with his units, but the problem point there was the Vanguard Bannerman, right? I didn't read into the big AoE play being the Vanguard Bannerman, and that's what took away the exact lineup that we had, right? If he has like the three units along with the champion strength, then we get to block the two units, flash freeze the one unit, then the champion strength rolls through and we have the options in terms of stopping it, or he has to preemptively champion strength and we're still okay. The place that we were dead there was the Vanguard Bannerman, to where he had the unit that gave the +1/+1 to the Cythria. That was like the only one that we had. He clearly had it, right? He was setting that play up as he made those attacks, but it's a bummer for it to fall like that. It's been so close. Like literally every single match has been so close. Like I feel like the only games that we've played throughout the entirety of this event that weren't just like super close was like that game that we just played against Ziggs, and then there was like one other game somewhere farther back, and it's just been like so close at like every single turn. Whew, it's been brutal. But nonetheless, good games, GrandpaRoji. Best of luck at Worlds. And then that is going to do it for us today. So hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way. Had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.